Thanks for having my help.
Yeah, mine says 9. Good morning, everyone. It's 9 o'clock, and I'm going to call this meeting of the Waterways Advisory Committee to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Committee member Liptak,
Here.
committee member Neely is currently absent, but he should be here shortly. Committee member Kwon,
Here.
committee member Sanders.
Here.
Committee member C,
Here.
vice chair Dikey, sorry. Here. Not captivated yet. Chair Ragnowich.
Here. Okay, so all members are present except one, and understand he is going to be here as well. I need to read this to you. The City of Santa Rosa is committed to creating a safe and inclusive environment. We will not tolerate speech or actions that disrupt a public meeting or may be perceived as aggressive, demeaning, or harmful towards staff, applicant team, or other meeting participants. Staff will be monitoring this meeting and ensuring everyone is participating respectfully. If staff determines that a meeting participant is acting in a disruptive or disrespectful manner, they will first be muted and given a warning. If the behavior continues, it will then be removed. If necessary, we may also immediately end the meeting. If participants have additional questions or concerns, they should reach out directly to the project planner or the applicant team. I'd like to now ask if there is someone who would like make a public comment on a non-agenda item. We're now taking public comments. This is the time for any person to make an address to the subcommittee on matters not listed on the agenda, but are within the subject matter of the jurisdiction of the committee.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Good morning.
Why did you need to?
My name is Dwayne DeWitt. I'm from Roseland. Glad to see you folks are back in business, allowing the public to participate in person. Some of you have not met me, but in the past I was a member of this committee. And I thought at the time that one of the best things the committee could have been doing was to be helping on the aspirations that were originally stated when Mr. Rabinowitz and others helped put the committee together. One of those things would be that there would be some advice on future activities along creeks. As it stands now, pretty much what happens is you folks are a reactive body. The staff bring forward something and say, this is what we're doing. We'd like for you to tell us what you think about what we're going to do, and they're going to do no matter what. You just put in something and that's that. It would be really wonderful if Mr. Rabinowitz and others could move forward on the idea that you folks were involving the public in the discussions on the public policy decision-making for waterways and creeks before projects are actually undertaken. This is really important because I guess it's been about 20 years ago when Jane Bender was mayor and you first started throwing lots of money into the Colgan Creek restoration. Millions upon millions and millions of dollars have been put forward on Colgan Creek. And lots of other creeks haven't really been addressed. The Santa Rosa Creek, it also gets a lot of attention because it's in the center of town. But the city's footprint has grown so much now. It's almost as big as San Francisco. It's almost like, I think about 45 square miles. And there's creeks all through the city. And there's different public projects that'll be coming forward. I just got something the other day about the, that Bellevue District project where they're gonna be building that fire station. It'll be near Colgan Creek. My hope is that, especially from discussions we've had in the past, myself and Mr. Dykey and others, that the creeks are treated as an asset that could help you to bring in other people's money, OPM, federal money, especially along areas that could be utilized for stormwater retention basins. We just went through a 3-year drought. We'll probably go through more droughts in the future. We'll get occasional big wet years. We should be saving that water in the creekways without lots of extra engineering. All that money that's getting spent on Colgan Creek right now is actually to undo millions of dollars of work that was done 40 years ago. And we didn't need to do that. So please, you folks get to be the voice. I'm here to encourage you. Don't let anyone hold that against you. I'm just here trying to be that active, involved citizen. And I look forward to hearing about these other good things. You know, Thunderbolt Way is where the old air center used to be. Out there on what was called the Santa Rosa Naval Auxiliary Air Station. And that runway's still out there in some places. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. DeWitt. Are there any other members of the public who would like to address the committee on matters not on the agenda, but within our jurisdiction? Anybody on Zoom?
We have no participants on Zoom.
Okay. The committee's role is to review development projects, both private and public, located adjacent to creeks and waterways for consistency with the goals, policies, and regulations of creekside development identified in the Santa Rosa General Plan, zoning code, design guidelines, and the citywide creek master plan. While the committee does not take formal action on projects, it does provide advisory comments to the decision body. All development projects located adjacent to a creek or waterway are required to be reviewed by the Waterways Advisory Committee prior to proceeding through the entitlement process. Next item, 3.2, regards committee reports. Are there any reports by any members of the committee? No? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 3.3, which is the election of a chair and vice chair. So what I'm going to do first is to open up nominations for the chair position. Are there, and people can self-nominate if they would like, and then we will have a second to that motion and vote.
I'll nominate current chair Rabinowitz for another term, whatever the term is.
Second.
Oh, that was easy. Are there other nominations? Anybody? Okay, I will close nominations. All in favor of my continuation on my role, please say aye.
Aye.
Don't hear any nays, but thank you once again.
How long a term is it?
That's a good question. It's been a little variable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe we're supposed to do this annually.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think it's 1 year, but I will send an email out if I'm wrong.
Yeah, things got a little out of the queue during the last couple of years with chaos that we've had all experienced.
And we're a very unique committee where the chair is not appointed by the mayor. So all the other committees pretty much are appointed by the mayor.
Well, that's what they'd like to, yeah, I actually thought that was the way it was done, but it has kind of veered back and forth a little bit. Okay, vice chair is our nomination for vice chair.
I nominate. Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, no opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good team and a great committee.
Thanks to both of you.
Thank you both.
Thanks for all of you to.
Chair Rabinovich, can you clarify who the second was?
I think it was.
Kevin C. Thank you. Well, that was short and sweet. Why don't we move on to department reports?
So, you wonder, because
Oh.
Kevin said he wanted to.
Okay, but yeah, we can do new member introductions. If you want.
Yeah.
Terry, you're rather newish.
I am the green one on the field. I'm Terrence Sanders, Santa Rosa resident for 17 years now, currently on the Santa Rosa Planning Commission.
We've gone around. Firefighter, right?
Yeah, I know I'll never know. I hate talking about myself. Retired firefighter, 25 years, actually in the city of Oakland. Lovely wife, lovely son, who's getting his first job interview today, so.
Ooh, yay.
Exciting.
Very excited.
Kevin C. I have, I guess, been on the committee for 4 years now, I believe. And I teach at the junior college. Live in Southwest Santa Rosa.
Carol Quant, member of the Recreation and Park Board, currently known as the Board of Community Services, and the appointee to this board from that board.
Steve Urbanowicz, I've been in this committee probably since its inception. Started the work here in 1990 on the Prince Memorial Greenway project with a group of 6 people, 6 citizens. That led to where we are today with the Prince Memorial Greenway. And first we started with Santa Rosa Creek Master Plan, but that the city planning department did, which then led to the Waterways Advisor, the citywide Waterways Plan. So here we are today, still a functional and relevant committee. And anyway, I'll leave it at, and I teach at the junior college too.
And a former Santa Rosa City Council member, right?
Oh, that, yes.
You're not so proud of that though, right?
I did my time.
I did my time. That's very telling.
Art Dyke, I'm an environmental consultant. I focus on stormwater pollution prevention, and what some people might not know is I am also on the board for the Laguna de Santa Rosa Foundation, which is quite a bit of fun.
Cool. I'm also green. My second meeting on the Waterways Advisory Committee. I am the appointee or the voluntold person. No, volunteered. I volunteered from the Design Review Board. So I'm on the Design Review Board. And I did train as an architect, and my career has been in higher education, usually in design of the built environment. So most recently Boston Architectural College, but it's pretty far away. Bad commute. Anyways, I'm really glad to be here. Very interested in
What's your name?
Vic Liptak.
Well, welcome to our new members. Glad to have the others. I guess that's everybody in terms of committee members. Is it time for the city staff to provide a briefing on any issues of interest?
May I make a comment on what you just had with new member introductions, sir?
Yes, please.
It's okay to be green. Keep that in mind. It's all right to be on an environmental type committee and have some green ideas too. Right? It's very rare.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that.
Be those folks that embrace the environment. Go green. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, department reports. Anything, Amy?
Nope, I don't have a report for you today.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have other reports. Anybody from the water department? like to report on an item?
Thank you, Chair Rubinovich and members of the committee. My name is Kyle Sponberg. I'm an environmental specialist with the Water Department's Stormwater and Creek section. I don't have any specific department updates, but if I may, I just wanted to highlight some of the upcoming volunteer opportunities that we have in the month of July. So as usual, we'll have our first and third Saturday creek cleanups along the Prince Memorial Greenway on July 1st and July 15th. Cleanups will be from 10 a.m. to noon, and we meet at the Olive Park footbridge. And then we also have a fun children's event on the creek on July 27th that I'd encourage you all to bring children, nieces and nephews or grandchildren down to. Members of the Stormwater and Creeks team will be leading a nature walk with the kids along a restored section of Santa Rosa Creek. We're planning to do crafts with plants and flowers, look at aquatic macroinvertebrates, and we'll also get a chance to get up close with some of the SSU biology department specimens that they have offered to bring those to the event as well. So hope to see you all there.
Great, thank you. Thank you for all your fine work.
Question for Kyle, which section of the creek, excuse me, which section of the creek is the kids
This
bed
is
at?
just upstream of Flat Rock Park. It's
Right.
along Streamside Drive.
Over there.
Thank you.
I was gonna say they could end the day in the fountain, but by the fish.
We can end the creek cleanups at the fountain.
I haven't done it myself, but I hear it's fun. Sonoma Water Department, anybody here from the water agency?
I don't think so.
No? Okay,
May I make another comment on that report that was just given from the water department?
yeah,
Mr.
Please.
Sponberg was too modest. Recently, he was out at Roseland Creek where there was the Creek Air Project put together by Santa Rosa, working with Introduce Santa Rosa and other activities. And there's beautiful murals out there now. You should go see them. Painted by the youth, put up out there. Kids are liking the creeks, and they've actually appeared, some of those youngsters at city council to talk about how they want more green stuff. Thank you kindly, sir.
thank you. Okay, the next item is regarding Prince Memorial Greenway volunteer update. And we all know there have been issues regarding the condition of the Greenway. The need for volunteers has become very evident. The creek cleanup efforts have been wonderful from the city, volunteer efforts as well. And we have Carol, who's been constantly cleaning up the creek as well as others of the committee have. But today I'd like to present Robert Ash, who is probably the most devoted person I have seen on the Greenway, or as a volunteer, helping with the creeks. Robert is there every morning, I believe, before work, and has been leading efforts to do creek cleanups. And he recently has started an effort to get a group together to increase the amount of participation in volunteering and also making sure that the creek remains a vital part of our community. So we've invited Robert to let us know about his most current volunteer effort, which is to expand what he has been doing for many years now. And so I'd like to introduce Robert Ash to you.
Thank you, Steve.
Please, Robert.
Thank you. Good morning, by the way. I'm a volunteer, first and foremost, always will be. But I've been working down on the Greenway for about 3 years now. And it's,
Robert?
yes,
Excuse me, would you join us at the main table?
Certainly.
Thank you.
but as time's gone on, I've decided that I need to get some more help down there on a daily basis. And so I'm looking to create a volunteer group of people, find a few good core people that would help participate on a pretty regular basis like I am myself. And then, of course, start introducing and asking the neighbors around Prince Memorial Greenway from the West End and from the Olive Park and even from Sonoma around the Prince Park as well, and get people to start volunteering a little bit of their time. So I've asked for some help to see if I can't generate some interest on that part. And the idea is to establish that volunteer group, always with an educational thought and always be learning something about the creek. A lot of the creek, there's a lot of trash on a daily basis, and that needs to be taken care of on a regular basis. But I'd like to focus on other things besides trash. There's a lot of restoration that needs to happen along the creek, up above the railing and of course below the railing. I think it would be to the benefit if we actually start cleaning that up and making it more presentable so that we can actually attract people down there. And the kind of people I'm talking about is just neighbors, of course, and then visitors that visit Santa Rosa, bicyclists, runners, bikers, just generate some interest down there, but we've got to clean it up a little bit. And I'm obviously asking some help down there. I passionately feel like this is a critical area to the city of downtown, and I need some help. So.
Carol, would you like to add something? Dedicated volunteer working with Robert.
So Robert is one of the nicest and most modest people I have the pleasure of knowing. And there's a lot to the existing story that I don't think you have shared. So I'll just prompt you with some questions, if I might.
Certainly.
Do you have any existing city partners?
City partners, I've got city parks and recreation, and of course, Kyle and his team are definitely people that come in and help, but it's somewhat sporadic. Obviously, they're busy doing other things. It's not just about Prince Memorial Greenway for them. For me, it is in this particular case. Of course, ultimately, I'd like to be able to participate in some of the other projects around the city as well. But right now, this is very time consuming. So I'm spending a great deal of time down there right now. But I have also recently, about a year ago, I had a gentleman that worked across the street, Jordan, and he came in as a volunteer and has been working side by side with me. That has been a huge help.
Before the conversation is over today, I'd love if you shared some of your aspirations, some of the brainstorming that is already in the works.
Well, the brainstorming, I've obviously had some time on my head to think about things, but there's so much down there on the creek, and it's so central to downtown. There's arts programs that we have already established down there. And then we can talk about establishing new arts programs. There's obviously, like I said, the educational aspect of things. The idea of bringing, some neighborhood festivals down there, some park get-togethers, barbecues, just to generate some good vibes and, start using our park system in the way I think it was always intended to be. Like I said, all the exercise aspects of downtown, that you can use to go anywhere you want from that starting point. So you're inviting people to come down and park their vehicles and then take their bikes or take their runs and take their walks, and they can go for miles and miles and miles. It's an incredible dynamic place down there. I get to meet people every single day. And from visitors, from people that are living down there, from people that are neighbors that are walking down the creek, it's an incredible place. But I think we need to also try to encourage some businesses to start participating in the creek and just bring awareness to the creek. I think it's very not known, even amongst citizens of Santa Rosa. We need to bring some awareness and generate that. And I'm trying to come up with ideas to help promote that.
Thank you.
Kevin?
Just thank you for everything you're doing. This is tremendous. And the spirit in which you're working, I think is very consistent with things we've talked about here, getting more businesses involved along the creek, getting more eyes on the creek, supporting all those runners and bikers and, people that want to just walk along there and feel comfortable walking along the beautiful creek with the artwork and everything, all the effort that's been put in.
Yeah.
So thank you. It's fantastic. Are you going to organize work parties for more volunteers on days other than Saturday? They often can't make that.
I want to work with small core of people, and we just start ticking away at some of the areas up above the creek, especially for right now, in order to create a more inviting creek. As far as I'm basically just talking the 1.6 mile, it's round trip. So it's basically 8/10 long. And so your experience down there, I want it to be a positive one. So I am trying to generate some interest from people that would be willing to volunteer some time. And I would truly like to have it as neighbors that are from the neighborhood that are adjacent to that area. I think it would be good, but I'll take anybody at this point,
Robert Seffer, go ahead, please.
So this is absolutely wonderful, citizen involvement like this. I have some comments and some suggestions because I'm a private consultant, but I work in a regulatory environment. Whose jurisdiction is this segment? Is it the cities or is it Santa Rosa Water?
Good question. I constantly come up with that issue, not knowing exactly whose jurisdiction is whose when it comes to things. But I pretty much look at it as the cities for the most part. Obviously, when I get down into the creek, I always look at the creek department when it's on the inside of the railing. But above the railing, I always look as the city parks department. Water, there's certain individuals or entities that I never really see that much.
So as I'm leading up to a couple things, so you've seen the highway signs where segments of the highway are adopted by certain organizations.
Certainly.
And they have to go through a qualification process with Caltrans to do that. The county has a similar adoption for cleanups, and there's a process for that too. The city manager here in Santa Rosa, City Manager Smith, has a beautification program she's trying to implement in the city. And this would fall right into what she's trying to do. So suggestions that I have is that you actually set up a meeting with City Manager Smith and talk about this and see what kind of support that she can give and help you cut through red tape or anything else like that. Because this is along the lines of what she wants to do. And I believe she's looking for groups and volunteers and leaders like you. The other thing is you got to figure out who the jurisdiction is. Because you'll be working in their jurisdiction, and if there's a way that we can adopt a creek, it would probably go through that jurisdiction, and the adoption would actually, signage would give you credit and would, just reinforce your effort. And the last thing I just want to mention is it used to be called the Clean Water Alliance. I'm not sure if it's still called the Clean Water Alliance because it's underneath the Russian River Keepers now, and they do this periodic stuff and. They might have resources for you to help you in this endeavor. So I just wanted to throw out all these potential suggestions and things that you might look into to continue your effort.
Thank you. Well, this is the idea is to start talking to people and start getting information like this. And I will absolutely follow up on some of those recommendations. Thank you.
Good ideas. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Love to hear about this idea. I'd love to see it become a real active volunteer program that is kind of self-sustaining and that volunteers are excited about it and they get other people to volunteer. And I'm thinking about a small volunteer program that I know, well, it's not even a program, it's a requirement at Roseland University Prep of the high school students that they do community service. And I have been a mentor there. I'm I need to re-up. I haven't re-upped lately, but I need to do that. But there's, all of those students are, learn about community service and have a commitment by being a student at RUP to do community service. And, there's sort of the default things that they choose because they don't know they don't know what their choices are, and they just kind of default into one thing or another. But you talked about the educational aspect of it, and getting high school students, even if they, don't live along Santa Rosa Creek themselves, but to see it as part of their city and part of what they'll be responsible for soon as adults.
Well, that's the idea is, start getting people to interact with the creek and start making a connection, is what I think you're referring to. And I always felt like we could look at the schools and start bringing students down there from the Ks to the middle school, to the high school, to the college. There's something there for everyone as far as an educational idea. I always look at arts, science, if you're looking at plants, the animals that are down there, you can go basically any direction you want with an education.
You could go on Walden Pond if you want to. Why aren't our creeks our Walden Pond? All right, that's a little philosophical, but that's all right. I can have aspirations too. I think if you're looking at the schools, the idea that you might actually have a group, something that has a name other than Robert Ashe, which is a fine name, wonderful name. But, if a school can say, oh, yes, we want our students to consider the Prince Memorial Greenway care group or whatever you call it, for their community service, right? And then there are groups of parents and administrators and then there's just the students themselves who would hear about it.
Well, we are talking about establishing a name of Friends for Prince Memorial Greenway.
Yeah, great.
And that's, I think, pretty much
So you need
what we've settled on.
a little TikTok thing and get it out there and.
Well, we're also talking about, getting out there on Facebook and doing all these kinds of, like I said, bringing awareness to it. And we're at the very basic infant stage of this idea. I think this whole creek could very much be a very center point to establish who we are as citizens of Santa Rosa. And it just will help define the creek a little bit and bring some attention to not just Santa Rosa Creek and Prince Memorial Creek, but all the creeks.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one thing, just real quick. So just be careful as you organize, because liability will become an issue that you're going to have to deal with. So
Considered.
just keep. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. Anything else? Thank you for all that you do, and you as well, because I know that you both are I see pictures of cleanups. You two are there. So I was curious, you said that, you'd like to start to move into doing something more than just trash pickup when you're talking about cleaning up the creeks.
Yes.
What is the level of trash that we're talking about? I mean, is it kids with the beer bottles? Is it lazy boy furniture chairs? I mean, what are we talking about?
It's pretty much all of the above. Yeah. I mean, I'll pick couches out of the creek and pull them up to an area where we can take it away immediately. Cushions, clothing, bottles, cans.
And I'm assuming that this is in areas of the creek where there aren't really eyes on the creek.
Most of the creek doesn't have eyes on the creek right now. The more people we invite, there'll be more eyes down there. And I think originally the idea was that the business would be facing that direction and there would be therefore eyes on the creek. Fortunately, it looks like we've got the apartment building going on in the cannery, which will obviously bring eyes on the creek. But the more people we can get up and down the creek, the more people that are constantly there. It was like the peace officer that we spoke with yesterday, Tim Barrett. He brought up the more people down there, the less things will happen. And I think just having more people down there will start to bring awareness to the creek's health.
Sure.
And people will start to pick up and change their habits a little bit.
Right.
And I have seen over the last 3 years, I have seen a change from what it was when I first started down there and what it is today. It's considerably better. But I still come up with approximately 2 to 3 50-gallon bags per day of debris that I can take to a location where it can be taken away. And I'm basically not even going into the creek itself. If I see something that's really blatant, I'll jump over the railing and grab it. Basically, for all intents and purposes, the time I spend down there, I'm just above the creek, above the railing on the walkway. So that's how much debris is down there right now.
It's just so discouraging because especially when we're talking about getting kids involved. And this is just, personal anecdote, we do the Wednesday night market and we have kids that help clean up. The fastest way to turn off a kid's volunteer spirit is to hand them a bag and a grabber and go, hey, come and learn about the creeks, pick up some trash. So some way, there has to be, when we're talking about education, bringing the kids into the creeks just to be present, to show and learn about their vital importance before you hand them the grabber and the bag. Sort of, get them acclimated to why this is so important, why it's so critical that we not dump the couch, down in the creek. And hopefully, from there, build a spirit of, wanting to hey, you're not learning this really cool thing about this creek. You know what? Let's get this bottle out of here. And you'll be, hopefully we can see them take that initiative on their own, even when they're not a part of an organized cleanup effort. Maybe they might be down there and say, oh, you know what? I learned this really cool thing and maybe I can throw this in the trash. So I don't know how that works, or how we get that to happen. But when we're talking about partnering with schools or other,
Kyle, do you want to just talk for a minute about how the effort's going on right now regarding cleanups and the schools and so on?
Perhaps mention Stephanie.
Yeah, so we do contract with an environmental educator named Stephanie Lennox and her business called Environment. And she interacts with, I want to say last year, it was roughly about 7,500 kids throughout the school year. Right now, she's out doing summer programs with some of the schools. I was out with her. Usually the way that works is there will be 1 or 2 classroom sessions teaching the kids about the creek and the interconnectability with the storm drain system, trying to highlight, similar to why you don't leave a bottle in the creek, why you don't leave it in the gutter to get swept down in the creek. And often those are, correlated with some cleanup aspect at the end of that creek lesson. So there are efforts to try and get kids out onto the creek. There are creek education efforts. But I agree, I want to start highlighting more of the just fun nature and the wildlife nature. And that's why we have that event on the 27th, to try not to focus on trash, but to focus on the great aspects.
A lot of schools near creeks.
Yeah, and there are lots of schools near creeks, and we usually keep those kids, we do work with Roseland University Prep, the middle school, but we take them to Roseland Creek a lot of times. And Pioneer High, we take them to Pioneer Creek. So we take them to all sorts of different parts of the creek. But I do think I also, with my program, would like to expand on some of the more wildlife nature things along the creeks to increase interest. That's what we all like, right?
exactly.
Good point, Terry.
Thank you again.
Can I, you had brought up, the idea is to actually start trying to restore some of the planter areas up above on the walkway. Again, therefore creating a little bit more of a positive environment, and finding some group and even asking some of the students to come down there and help out on that. I think the idea is give them something to actually put their hands on and be physically involved. when you've been involved in something, I think you walk away with a better respect and a little bit more awareness. And I don't necessarily want to, use them as a workhorse per se, but I want them to put their hands on it and interact with the creek in a way that we currently don't right now.
Right. And I would think that interacting with the creek is golden. Interacting with someone's Cheeto bag is not necessarily the most uplifting.
Well, it's just been, for
That's
all
what-
intents and purposes, most every time I've seen, and I may be wrong, but most of the time I see groups go down there, they're picking up trash. And I'd just like to see something other than picking up trash.
Yes, I totally agree. Absolutely.
Like the making of things, so hands-on for sure is a way to get people involved. We used to say, what is it? Dirty hands, open minds. In architecture education, as we used to say that, at least in the ones that the classes I taught. With the idea being that if you are physically and intellectually and creatively involved, and it's the creative aspect too, right? Where you might be cleaning, you might be fixing, but you might be making something entirely new, right? So like planting and then tending to something that you're growing, for example. Some of the artwork down there isn't that a community art? Those are community art. What's the name of that group? I read it. Art Star, right. Like, there's more places for art and young people could be making it. And then it does make me think about the liability issues, but they aren't insurmountable.
Well, there's a committee we're going to be following this wonderful effort. You can tell there's great interest here and a lot of ideas. And I'm very happy about the committee and your wonderful suggestions. And
May I add a personal anecdote?
yeah, please.
So I've been on the Park and Rec Board for, I think, 9 years now. And my mentor was a gentleman by the name of Stan Gow, who was very instrumental, preceded Robert in the creek cleanup. My first volunteer effort was cleaning up Santa Rosa Creek, where I met some of the most influential and important people in my life, picking up garbage, weeding. It led to my life at the rural cemetery, thanks to our mutual friend, Bill Montgomery, who I was working with one day in the sunshine, volunteering at Santa Rosa Creek. So the potentials are limitless. The engagement with the city of Santa Rosa is incredible, and the people you meet are the best.
Thank you.
Well put. A couple of us are involved in working on this effort with Robert, and committee members can participate as volunteers. We just can't discuss committee work if we are in volunteer settings, I will say, because of Brown Act requirements. But anyway, I hope the efforts will continue. We're definitely think of this as a model project.
I look forward. Thank you.
And Robert, just tremendous dedication. I mean, going there for a couple hours before a work day is
Every day.
impressive. Every day.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Well, so thank you. And I just wanted to see if there are any members of the public wishing to make a comment.
Yes, sir. It's great to hear what you're doing. And thank you so much for all that effort. And also to Mr. Spomber. I do hope that you'll also come to Roseland Creek, as Ms. Liptak has mentioned. We have a Make a Difference Day event in October, the third Saturday in October. Been doing it for over a dozen years there. And we got lots of volunteers that are right there that live near that creek. And I think you'll get a chance to meet some folks who rarely had had much interaction with the city agencies until annexation was completed 6 years ago. And now that Roseland University Prep School has been built there, the youth are getting an opportunity to do some of those things we spoke about. We had a greenhouse on one property, but the city demolished it. And one of the things that I think the children especially need to see is that the suggestions that they make and the things that they're doing are actually validated by the adults. And if you come out there and you get a chance to work with those teams that are working with us on the things we're doing, you'll find that almost all the things you've talked about can be realized, typically without much jurisdictional agency support. No one's got any money. So it's all about trying to do, as Mr. Saunders said, getting the youth to see that they're not just there to pick up a Cheeto bag. This is about learning about nature and all that stuff. That wasn't really embraced all that much in the past. And this committee that Mr. Rabinowitz has got going has been able to at least get that on the agenda. And to see all the employees involved is great. Make a Difference Day, look it up. It's a national effort. We've been doing it in Roseland for at least 12, 13 years. Third Saturday of October.
Okay.
And good luck.
Good job, Blake. One last comment. I, about 25 years ago, got a grant for creating a creek curriculum to bring teachers down with their classes to the creek. And we have training programs of the teachers with a hydrologist and biologist to give them background information about the creek and its natural environment. And that went on for a period of time, and then we ran into issues regarding the challenges of busing kids from their schools to the sites, and so things didn't continue very long. But I still have that creek curriculum on my bottom shelf of my bookcase. So I think about the high schools. I think about the junior college too, because there are a lot of great professors and classes in that university as well. So anyway, there's lots of it.
Absolutely.
So again, thank you,
Thank you.
Robert. And we look forward to seeing the fruits of this.
Thank you.
Did you know that UC Berkeley gave a report to the city called Creekscaping for Kids with Strawberry School?
Great.
15 years ago. Somewhere in the file.
Check it out. Thank you. Okay.
Did you get my emails yesterday?
Yes.
So our next item is.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
North Point Commerce SEQA analysis. Wait a minute, what is the title here? Design review of the North Point Commerce Center building. Staff, why don't you correct me on what we're,
North Point Commerce.
sorry?
You had it, North Point Commerce.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And thank you for the patience of our applicant as well.
It's all good. Great stuff.
So we have a presentation by our planner, Suzanne.
Hi, good morning. I'm the project planner for North Point Commerce Center, located at, well, there's 4 parcels here, but there's 3 addresses. It's 1408, 1416, and 1420 Thunderbolt Way. So the project proposal is to construct an industrial building called the North Point Commerce Center. It's going to be approximately 114,884 square feet on over a 6-acre site with 4 parcels with accesses on both Kingfisher Way and Thunderbolt Way. This is the, looks like there was a star there. I don't know where it went. But yeah, so as you can see here on this aerial view, the surrounding areas, there's some residential neighborhoods to the south of the site. And then there's industrial and a business park on both the east and west sides of the parcel. And then there's some more various residential uses to the north of the parcels. Oh, there it is.
There it is.
That's interesting. Okay, good to know. Oh, didn't do that for that one. And this is just kind of a more zoomed in aerial view of the parcels, and you can kind of see a little bit of the history there of where the former airstrip, military airway used to be. The general plan land use designation is general industry, and the zoning district is general industrial. And again, the surrounding parcels are general industry, also zoned residential, various residential. Oh, and business park. There's the star again. This is the proposed site plan. Just for reference, the blue portions of the site plan are the stormwater retention areas. The red lining here, I believe there's some streetlights that are proposed here at the south with a maximum height of 16 feet. And the green areas are the landscaped areas. This is the proposed landscape plan. To the south here, right at the edge, is the 8-foot poured-in or proposed 8-foot tall poured-in-place concrete sound wall with proposed vegetation such as like climbing vines. I have spoke with the applicant and their team regarding just flexibility about the sound wall. There seems to be a little bit of back and forth on whether or not we would want one. So there is flexibility there, and yeah, we'll wait for your comments regarding the sound wall as well. Some of the proposed trees in the landscape are some Chinese pistache, coast live oaks, strawberry trees, western redbuds, dwarf magnolias, and some maidenhair trees. There's also a more detailed list of the plants that are proposed. Some that I have listed down here are the California lilac, the Boston ivy, purple sage, and the sunset manzanita, to just name a few examples. And the proposed sound wall is approximately 55 feet from the creek flow line, and the minimum setback distance is 30. So they do meet that setback requirement. This is the proposed north elevation of the building. As you can see here, there has the most, this will be the view from North Point Parkway. The west elevation is mainly just also windows and entryways. The south elevation, which faces the creek, is where the truck bays are, which is also why the sound wall was suggested to help kind of tone down some of the noise that might occur from loading and unloading trucks for the residential areas that back up behind those parcels. And the east elevation there's not necessarily, I didn't see any windows or anything. It was mostly just doorways for egress and ingress. So the Planning and Economic Development Department requests that the Waterways Advisory Committee provide comments and direction for the proposed Commerce Center located at 1408, 1416, and 1420 Thunderbolt Way. And this is, there we go. And this is my contact information if you have any questions.
Thank you.
And also our applicant, Jose McNeil, is here if you have any questions directed towards the applicant as well.
Would you like to make any comments at this point?
Sure. One, thank you. Thank you for hosting the meeting. The sound wall is kind of an interesting thing. I mean, we went through our preliminary design review to the Planning Commission, and some of the comments from the residents were, "Can you put a sound wall in?" And we said, "Sure, we could do that." And then from Waterways, from our last meeting at the Heritage one, said, "Why are you going to do a sound? Is there a sound wall? Heritage doesn't have one, but this one does." And I said, I'm open, just tell me whatever you want. And actually the public comments we've gotten some saying, "Oh, I hope there's a sound wall," and others saying, "I hope there isn't a sound wall." So I think that's the only point where, like, just tell us what you want, we'll do it. If we can go back to the site plan, I'll go through a couple things on it.
1 moment.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be number 6. Yeah, that'd be great.
Oh, I'm just curious. All the way back. Okay.
Yeah. So you can see there's a little slice kind of in the building. Originally it's supposed to be rectangular, like all good industrial buildings have to be. Creativity in our midst. There's a stormwater easement comes through there, so that's why that slice is there. But I actually think it adds a little kind of fun to the building, and that it's not just a rectangle like everything else. So we did that. We get some questions about, who are the tenants? Well, we don't know yet because it's a speculative building. We do have interest from several. Some are more office-y, I'll say. that may or may not be located very close by. And if that was the case, the truck bays in the back would be, if they take half the building, about one of these bays would be kind of eliminated, and it'd probably be just additional parking. And so we just have one half of the building that would have most likely some trucks. And the trucks here are not going to be, in my mind, they're not going to be, frequent. It's going to be kind of a delivery in and out, some light manufacturing. That's kind of what this area has been, is really light manufacturing, not heavy logistics turnover. But again, it's been well received in Santa Rosa. The vacancy for industrial right now is close to 0%. This area is impacted a little bit by the PG&E situation of power. If everybody's aware of that, they've come out and said, we have no power for you until maybe 2025. This site does have power, and so we're kind of unique, and we'll probably be one of the only buildings under construction, if everything goes well, in 2024. So I think it's going to add to the base for industrial. It's going to attract some other jobs or move some people into this for some jobs in this area. It fits within what the design guidelines are. And, we want to be good neighbors. So that's why the sound wall was proposed or not proposed, and whatever we can do with that, we will. And again, as it is now, we're going to green screen the back of it with vines or climbing type of things so that it's not just a stark wall. I hate those as well. That's the idea. So I'm open for any questions.
Thank you. So this is time for the committee to ask questions of staff or the applicant. Any members have questions I'd like to ask? We'll get to our recommendations in a little bit. Yes, please.
For staff, are you related to Claire?
I'm not,
Okay.
just coincidence.
On the disclosure form, it's pretty much blank. So I don't know if I have any conflict of interest with architects or civil engineers or anything. Also, Viavi is the owner, so that's the big and all this industrial, yes. But they're not going to operate there.
No.
Okay, so I just wanted to point that out. On the agenda, when I clicked on attachment 4, it came up with site photos, so it was duplicated. So the neighborhood context map wasn't in the agenda. And this is a reoccurring issue that I have with the watershed map that's included on here. I mean, it's huge and tiny, and I have no idea where the project is located. It really needs to be zoomed in and blown up to actually show that. So these are just comments I have for the planner on this. If there's very little minimal manufacturing going on inside and it's just trucks coming in and out, has there been problems with sound on the other facilities?
My understanding and from the comments from the public, that's where this is generated from.
Okay.
And so it was, boy, if we could have a sound wall, that would be beneficial. Not that there was, excessive sound, although there was one comment about Amy's Kitchen a little bit further up, and that was more of smells, I think.
Sometimes it's good smell though.
Yeah, sometimes, but that was the whole idea. That's how that sound wall came up, and we just went, tell us what you want, it's.
Yeah, so it seems unnecessary to me. Has a noise study been conducted?
We did a study of, I think we did do a sound study, but again, the decibels that are going to come out of, it depends on the volume of trucks.
But the noise study will.
Yeah, no,
give an estimate for that, and then there's a distance to the residential, so.
Yeah, and we're far away from it.
Yeah.
So it's a significant distance across from our backyard to the creek, and then from the creek to the backyards. But again, it's being overly cautious, I guess I'll say, to neighbors, because you want to be a good neighbor and you don't want to have a lot of sound. But at the same time, from the last meeting we had, I understand the waterways, you want to have that view. So it's
Yeah, if you were a freeway, we'd say, okay. But eyes on the creek is really important to us. Okay, thank you, Steve.
I think there's a question, Carol.
Yeah, first for staff, are we going to be in this room moving forward? Do you know? Because if we are, if you could put the board closer to the monitor rather than far away, my eyes are getting old and I'd really appreciate being able to see. Thank you so much. To the applicant, any other sound walls existing on that stretch?
That's a great question. And no, Viavi has I think they have a chain link wall with vines. And that's really what we're proposing on Heritage, which is the one we were in a month ago, I think. This one just, again, it was generated by the residents, one resident actually. And I just went, tell us what you want, you know, so.
And my second question, which may or may not be appropriate, in a perfect world, do you see your two projects, the one you presented last month and this one, going up at the same time if possible?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I would like.
Out of our control.
Are there any restrictions? I'm not sure who can answer this, but are there any restrictions on operating at night such that, you know, the sound wall would be needed because trucks are coming in, going in the middle of the night, or does that all depend on the tenant?
It depends on the tenant, and I think you could, because Viavi actually operates 24/7, I think. So there's activity there already.
Okay.
Construction wise though,
Yeah, construction wise, no.
Right. I'm thinking about operating. And the reason I ask is I live right across the creek. So I'm one of those residents. My house is in the picture there that was shown in the second slide, I think. And across from us, there's no sound wall now, which I really like because it opens up our view a little bit. I mean, we look at the back of a warehouse. Occasionally we'll hear the beeping of a truck or a forklift backing up, but never at night, which is really a pleasure. We didn't know moving in, of course, and it probably depends on the tenants. So the mixed feelings you expressed of do we do a sound wall or not are exactly what's going through my head, because my thinking is if there's a tenant there that has trucks going through all night, definitely need a sound wall. But barring that, I really like the lack of a sound wall across from us because it does create the sense of more eyes on the creek. We don't see a lot of people over there, but we see some. And it sounds like in this design with parking in the back, we'll be seeing more. Potentially, right, as people park back there, which I like because it does, again, create that people presence and a feeling of safety and community. And it's much better than looking at a solid wall. So, I don't know if, I guess, can you build a wall contingent on who the tenant is? That sounds like it's asking a lot, but that's almost where I would go.
Well, and again, I would add that it wouldn't just be the wall. We would have, we have green there as well.
Right.
I mean, again, it's not what the best solution. It is a solution that kind of marries the two.
Right.
And for sound itself, we can do sound studies, and if you put a sound wall up, then the sound might go further away because it becomes an amphitheater type thing, and then the neighbors 2 miles away will go, wait, what is that sound? But again, it's not a big logistics center of 300,000 square feet with 24 trucks moving in and out every hour. It's a little bit less intense than that. But again, it depends on the tenant and the people that we've been talking to. Hopefully they'll step up. It would change the environment a little bit more towards a business center type thing with more autos than trucks.
Sounds great.
But until that gets done, I just worry every night. So
I've thought about that amphitheater effect, or if that's what you called it, because I'm far enough down. We don't have any sound walls, as I mentioned, near our house. So if there's one down here, is it going to reflect all the sound to us? So anyway, I think, get some office-y types like you mentioned. That'd be great.
Well, I don't know if you read the news, but office is not very good right now.
Yeah.
Just for clarity, you would be the only sound wall on that stretch? Yeah, so that's kind of interesting because sound bounces, right? And, it's not water. It's not like you're containing water. It's still going to.
Actually, it's a little like water with the waves, but that's a whole different.
That's a different question. So, okay, thank you.
Any other questions by, yes, committee members?
So, I mean, we do this, apparently. I mean, like, this is how it works. We look at things project by project. You happen to have two projects that are really, I mean, if we were able to think of them as related, right? And we are Waterways Advisory, so we should be thinking about the creek in its entirety, not about, you know, the frontage on the creek not only about the frontage on the creek of a specific project. And I think this really is interesting because one of the projects has a sound wall as a response to a resident who had.
Well, also, if I could jump in,
Yeah.
also the other one is oriented, if you remember how it's oriented, the truck wells are.
And don't do the, you know, why are the truck walls, do they have to be in the back? I don't know. I know that a lot of work has already gone into that, and you have reasons for that, but we also have to be looking forward and asking ourselves, what is trucking going to be like after 2030, for example, and when the state moves away from.
It could be really quiet.
It could be, well, it could be quieter than it is now, for sure, right? So like, are we mitigating for sound problems of the early 2020s when in fact we're looking at the late 2020s and 30s and beyond, where it's going to be a different situation? And
Great point.
Yeah.
Great point.
you know, and the office thing itself is, you know, like, how do we fill those offices? Because people, if you're doing an office job, many people can work remotely at least part of the time, right? Which reduces office space. I want to come back to the creek and the R. I'm looking at the watershed map and the big R's that just run all the way down the creek and say, what's going to happen to that creek in, you know, aspirationally for us in the next 10 years. And what does that mean for the way we build on the north side of the creek?
Well, that brings up something in my mind because, you know, in the best of all worlds, if I were working in a facility, I would want to be able to go out for lunch and sit by the creek on a picnic bench.
Right.
Walk along
Walk it
it.
on your break.
Yeah.
You know, and I know that's not exactly, it's not what's before us, but the creeks are an amenity. I don't want to get into recommendations because we'll get to that in a minute, but I asked myself that question about same thing you're bringing up, Vic, the value of the creek itself.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, I'm about to go into the loop I end up in where I see the same thing over with slightly different words. So I'll stop.
Okay. Please. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Suzanne, you said something about the flow line and the setbacks, but we've kind of always operated with top of the bank.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
And I did actually ask the applicant that this morning. So if you want to.
Yeah, we're gonna conform to whatever the minimum is, but it's, you know, I don't know if we can go back to that site plan, I'll show you. One of the interesting things on how things develop is over time where and I'll use the term back fence for the back of the parcels has kind of varied. And so we're gonna conform to the current,
yeah.
you know, kind of fence you can see where it'd be obvious to the left there. That's the same line that we're gonna hit. And so again, we're not imposing anything further back. We're just trying to make it
Understood.
uniform. So
Yeah. Okay. But, okay.
How many more parcels out here are left to be built out?
there's across the way to the north, there are two. It's kind of a parking lot.
Let me clarify, specifically along the creek,
None. This
Okay.
is less two. Yeah, there's less two.
but a number of pre-existing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see this is, I can walk up here. This is more of an office. See, this is Northrop Grumman that's here. So this is Business Park going this way. And then going this way is industrial and up this way is industrial. It's the old JDS Uniphase campus, if everybody remembers that. when that started. So it's been, and Viavi has owned this parcel. This was going to be part of their expansion, and then the other one as well. And there's on a corner, there's another parcel away from the creek, but those are the last three out here.
Thank you.
So.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have one. Well, it's kind of a comment. So I don't know if we do we
We'll get to
separate?
comments.
Well, so then I'll phrase it as a question. How's that? Would it be possible as an intellectual exercise to think about it as the creek not being the backside?
Sure. Again, I was going to say, what our goal is with our tenants, this is the plan. I mean, you gotta start somewhere. And so here's the plan. If the tenancy becomes more office oriented, more employee oriented, the idea of creating areas outside, especially with access to the creek, 100% agree with. We've done that. I've done that in every project I can. But we have to hit the market for what is it zoned for, and what is the typical use going to be. And so that's where we're at now. If we look, let's go back. We have in the back, we have some parking areas back there, and I always laugh about it. On the front side of the building, front side of the creek, we have parking in the back of the building for cars. What that typically runs into, intended here, is I always call that area where trucks and cars collide, because that's where any accident between a truck and a car will occur, is when you put passenger cars in the back there. What that typically then becomes, or sometimes becomes, depending on the number of employees, we have to show, certain number of parking spots per office square footage and then per industrial. These will probably not be used for that. Again, I'm projecting and stuff. And so then this becomes an area of outside activity for the employees, where it can be turned into kind of the picnic benches and those type of things, so they can enjoy this type of view. And we're open to that. Again, our response for the sound wall or the not sound wall is just driven by public comment and trying to be responsive to that. That's all. So.
Thank you. Any questions before we move to public comment and then come back to us for recommendation? Any comments by the public?
Yes, sir. My name is Dwayne DeWitt. I'm from Roseland. I've been on this creek all my life, various times. Sound walls are graffiti magnets, so I would not recommend a wall in any way, shape, or form. If you want green infrastructure, you could do chain link fence with vines. I would be really hopeful that you would adopt the city's approach for alternative transportation. Bicycles haven't been mentioned at all yet, but there's supposed to be a bike path on both sides of Roseland Creek per previous plans in the past that are aspirational. Let's take the burden off of this applicant. He shouldn't have to spend any extra money, because some people believe there might be a little extra sound. You should really work towards this being as natural an area as possible, with as many opportunities for bicyclists to come and pedestrians to come down the creek walk to get to this place to work. Do it in such a way that the workers would feel nice having a natural area for their breaks. The residents nearby wouldn't have something that's obtrusive or ugly. You gotta avoid graffiti. This is key to any of this stuff. Any kind of wall you put up is just gonna get tagged and become problematic. So far, down the street, if you remember on the picture going to the east, right there where you come off Stony Point Road on the creek, the church put in a fence that's metal and spaced, and then it has greenery nearby. So you could do something really lovely and natural. And it was talked about stormwater retention. You could work on having the swales and the different things that the city has stated would be helpful along Burbank Avenue further to the east, which was the first scenic roadway out there in West Santa Rosa. This is an optimal project. They're going to move forward at the old optical coating site and make it all better. So let's go with him getting what he's going to get done and not cost him more money by putting up something that'll be ugly and attractive to nuisance. Go with something really nice, really green. I'm going to keep bringing the green thing back to this committee all the time. Thank you kindly.
Thank you, Dwayne. Okay, this is a time for the committee members to weigh in on recommendations. Terry, would you like to start off?
Sure. Thanks again. Good to see you again. You know, and I'm going to echo some of what Mr. DeWitt has offered. You know, keeping things as natural as possible is the goal. I don't see a purpose for a sound wall. You know, I really love Vic's concept of referring to the creek side as not the backside, but as a beautiful amenity to the workers who will be at the building. And, you know, when you treat it as that sort of back area, you know, that's where, well, the dumpsters are in the back and you know what I mean? You know, you want to make that something that is not the also part, but an integral part of it. So, you know, if we can keep that in mind, keep it in mind, you know, the ideas that we want to attract something other than nuisance, right? We want to have eyes on the creek. We don't want people back there feeling, you know, like this is not a safe environment. Keep it open, keep access. I think it'll be great.
Kevin.
What he said.
Which is what he said.
Which is what he said. Yeah. I think.
And then she said, so.
Yes. Right. At the risk of saying the same thing with slightly different words, I think as an advisory board, we're putting forward some principles that we would love to see incorporated in as many projects as possible. And I think green is one. Eyes on the creek is absolutely one. Anything we can do with, you know, having people eating lunch out back along the creek. I think if we had, rather than it being the backside with the trucks, if there was a way that the trucks are around the side and somehow there was, I mean, I'm almost envisioning like a little plaza in the back where people are eating lunch. That this project would be a huge hero, I think, for the entire neighborhood if it brought that kind of innovation. So I think maybe that's one of the principles too, is eyes on the creek, as much greenery, as much people presence, and pushing because of the residents. And again, I live there, so I have a special interest in this project, but pushing the noise around to the side or around the front or whatever as much as possible. And I think ideally then no sound wall, because it really is nice to look across and have it open. And rather than sort of a dead zone there where it's just a wall. Even though I love the idea of the greenery, the vines, that will be a big gain. When we look across at Northrop Grumman, we look at the industrial wall, but it's set back, so it doesn't seem imposing. That said, it's much nicer to look at the trees that are on both sides. So, anyway, I think those are some of the principles I think that I would support. Thanks.
Thank you.
I've pulled up Google map of the area. I'm looking at the airfield and part of me says, wow, this used to be agricultural land. And it's like, wow, this used to be an airfield and God knows what all still under there. So it's a challenging area. I want to echo my hope that there's no sound wall because it would produce a potential precedent not only to future construction in the area, but also to pre-existing construction in the area who might say sound wall, but what they're actually trying to do is produce a barrier to the creek. So I would love to see that open. One thing that has not been mentioned is your use of native plants. California lilac is ceanothus. Many of your plantings are native. The bees and butterflies say thank you. And please keep at it. Keep at it. Low water use. Make a superhighway for our flying friends. Thank you so much.
Nicely put. Vic?
Following up on what my colleagues have said, the idea that the south elevation of the building and the of the project, the south, and not just, so the elevation, of course, is talking about the building. We're talking about the creek because we're Waterways Advisory. And if that were an opportunity, as important as whatever your the North Point Parkway elevation is with signage, et cetera, but I mean, generally speaking, if projects saw the part of the project that is adjacent to the creek as an opportunity. Now, I mean, you know, what is it, a 68-page report for the biology stuff? Like, you know, because you're required to do that, and it's done very well. I'm learning a lot when I read them. But it makes the creek as part of the natural environment like something you have to deal with, right? And that you're constrained in what you can do. And so then that's how we deal with it as these constraints. But if we thought of it as opportunity, and then the constraints would be met because we would be the things we would be caring about sort of as a starting point. There's a lot. I mean, it's a big project, and you actually have a lot of space to work with. So the creek is an opportunity, and thank you for considering that. That's my comment.
Sure.
So I think that we used to say they don't use it to hate anymore was a paradigm shift, you know, and that's kind of, you know, with this back lot, front lot, all things. And so you're really stating it really well. And the path is a bike path, right? So it's in the master plan to connect all the way out to Llano from Stony Point. And you know, we're trying to encourage more bike riding and alternative forms of transportation. And so I'm suggesting to you is that you look at incorporating this bike path. You can get off of Stony Point and you don't have to go on North Point. You can go right on this bike path and then you can pull in potentially into yours if there was a way to do that. So I'm just suggesting that maybe you look at, along with Vic's comments, you look at incorporating a way that people could use bicycles to come to work, and they'd have an access point that, of course, you'd have to be concerned with security and stuff like that, but there's things you could do. And then there would be an area where the bikes could be parked, and maybe that's a break area, and then you're reaching out to that, you know, the creek, the alternative transportation, everything else. So that's what my suggestion is. And no sound wall. If it goes before, if you have to do that, I'll make comments at the planning commission or whatever about that, you know, individually. Okay, thank you.
Why are you looking at me?
Aren't you from the planning commission?
Oh, yeah.
So, when I went to graduate school in urban planning, I was very inspired by a book called Design with Nature by Ian McHarg.
Oh, good one.
And it was about how when you're designing cities, you start with the natural environment. And then you plan the urban environment based on the natural environment's context that it provides. A little idealistic in today's world, and yes, I still think it's relevant, even in an urbanized area. So yeah, we start with the creek and the natural environment of the creek and the amenities that it provides not just environmentally, but to us. And that's what we're doing here, is to try to take advantage of the nature we have and enjoy it and preserve it and improve it wherever possible. And so, yes, I think to the best of your abilities, I know you work in your own context and challenges and land development, but taking advantage of that creekside, it may not feel like it is important to the types of uses right now that are being potentially, the most viable economically, but in the longer term, I think there are advantages to the creekside location. Fencing it, you're going to do it. Sound wall seems totally unnecessary. So I know you're looking for an answer. This is our recommendation as an answer. Please, no sound wall. But then the question is, well, what do you do? Wrought iron, I think, is more attractive than chain link. Some of the other developments have wrought iron. Taking advantage of that back part, though, right by the creek, and allowing some of that land potentially to be used for, like I said, potentially some picnic tables or other kinds of, more friendly amenities to the workers would be an enhancement. So I have a really radical idea. Putting in a gate on the other side of the fence. You could lock it for now. That's fine. Do whatever you want with the gate or idea. But, somehow taking advantage of that area, landscaping, yes, and some access to the creek. I didn't see in the creek master plan any reference to a bike trail, though.
Yeah.
Am I missing something?
I didn't.
It's on the south side.
It's on the other side of the creek, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's on the other side?
Yeah, that's why I was like,
Yeah, I saw you working for Flex. Like, oh, is it really?
yeah, it's not really. So we could do a kind of a Evel Knievel jump ramp over.
Well, now you're talking.
I saw him jump at the Tropicana Hotel once.
Point of clarification, isn't there fencing possibly with barbed wire between that side of the creek and the park area? That you cannot get to the creek from Pear Blossom Park. It is quite fenced.
I don't know that, so.
There are stretches that are fenced and stretches that aren't. And there are a couple places where it's open. And I think people when the creek is dry, they actually cut across into one of your two parcels. I know that's where people cross. There is, in the creek master plan, at some point, there's intention to put a bridge over to Fresno, down a little bit west of where we're talking about, which would be fantastic. That would connect the current unpaved bike trail, which I ride all the time, over to Fresno, and then you can go up to Joe Rodota. I'd love to see that, but I digress. So at this point, because there's no trail, I don't think there's any fencing along the back of any of those industrial properties at this point.
I think Viavi, I know Viavi.
Oh, Viavi does, you're right. Where we look at Northrop Grumman.
No, that does, but that's business park versus industrial too. That's a change in zoning. So
Okay.
And part of it is the planning staff will say is there's competing kind of requirements depending on the zoning on what you have to do. So.
Okay.
And there are bike lockers, by the way, so.
Great.
Well, thank you. Any other remaining comments by the committee? Amy, are you okay with where we are here? A lot of ideas. Moving.
Yeah.
No clarification needed.
Does Angie need anything?
No sound wall.
With that, I think we've done with this item, and I will call the adjournment of this committee meeting until next month, or you think? We still thinking about
We're going to try to schedule the tour.
the tour
Yep.
down to Colgan? Did you have something to say?
I was going to say future agenda items, a couple of field trips. Maybe Robert could take us for a field trip this summer.
Great.
I could take you for one on Roseland Creek, but also coming towards the east. Field trips in
All up for field
August when
trips.
school's back in session.
We'll have a GoPro for public comment and that kind of stuff.
Right.